Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make this three-dimensional succulent shaker card, and we're going to use some supplies from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. That's where all the stamps and ink is coming from, and I'll have some other supplies from my stash all linked down below in the video description. I'm going to start off by folding a piece of cardstock in half. This is just half of a sheet of cardstock, so it's basically an A2 card, and I'm tracing around this die cut. Now, I wanted to make a shaped card today, so I wanted to make my card base so that it would also have the shape of the shaker card. And then I'm just going to go in and trim this with scissors. Now, I'm using a heavyweight cardstock. I've got that cardstock, the Recollections from Michaels, that 110 pound, and that is a doozy to cut through by hand. I ended up cutting off the little decorative elements on the sides so that I would be able to hide it behind my die cut terrarium there. And that is an embossing die cut that I thought would be so perfect with the succulent stamps that I designed for Rubber Stamp Tapestry last year. So once you have all that all trimmed out so that you can hide it behind your cutout, and I just used gold cardstock for that, then you can start your stamping. And we're going to stamp directly on the front of the card base. I've mounted all of my succulent stamps on the fronts and backs of clear blocks, and then I'm just going to make an arrangement. We're going to use a technique that I've shown you many times before called masking, and what I love about this technique is that you can make arrangements with your stamps. So you're not just limited by having a single stamp here and a single stamp there. You can make like succulent arrangements. You could put a bunch of animals together in a scene. I love this technique because it makes your stamps so much more useful. Now, when I take the time to cut masks and to make these, I just stamp on a piece of Post-it note. Like I just make sure I stamp over the sticky part, and I cut them out. And then I save them with the stamps that they belong to. And that way, every time I want to make a card where I'm going to be doing masking, I have those sticky notes already cut out and ready to go. So here you can see how I kind of put the sticky notes over the area I want to protect. You've got to stamp your front objects first, and I stamp them closer to the bottom of my card so they appear to be in the proper relationship to one another. And then you just keep layering over the sticky notes after you stamp something to protect it. And that way, everything you stamp on top, every element is going to appear to be behind the elements before. Now, this stamp right here is my favorite one from the set, this jade stamp. I love it because I have this really big jade plant in my living room. And if you know me, you know that I kind of have a black thumb, and I have kept that alive for quite a while, and it looks so healthy. It actually looks like it might be a little too big for the pot, but I'm too afraid to repot it because anytime I repot something, it's like sudden death for whatever plant I touch. So at least I have it in stamp form. Even if I kill the plant, I'll have the stamp forever. And so I just stamped that a couple times because I like how it reaches up and fills the space. Once you have all your stamping done, you can remove those masks and just keep them with your stamp set so that you don't have to cut them again. I mean, as long as you can make out the shape, you're fine. I mean, it can have tons of ink on the front of it. As long as the back side is clean and you can line it up, you are good to go. And there, look at that nice full lush arrangement. And there you can kind of see how it's going to look after I put my covering down. Now I'm going to color this in with alcohol pens. And honestly, at this point, I'm thinking, oh, I have never used alcohol pens on this paper before. I don't know if it's going to work. So I was kind of freaking out because I was doing my dark to light coloring method where I put the shadows in first and then I blended out with the midtones, and it blended. I couldn't believe it. So if you are having a hard time finding marker paper that blends, like cardstock that blends, or it's just so expensive, you don't want to order the Nina online because it's just out of your price point, check out the heavyweight Recollections paper at Michaels. I don't have any of their lightweight white. If anyone's used that for marker blending, please let us know in the comments below and how it worked out. But this heavyweight stuff worked great. I couldn't believe it. It just blended so easily. And the markers I'm using are the brand new Ohuhu brush tip markers. They have just been released for sale. I've actually had a set for a couple months because they sent them ahead to see what I thought, to see how they were, and I'm really enjoying them. And they're probably the least expensive brush tip markers I've ever used. So just something to consider if you're in the market. Now, in this jade plant, I'm going to color each plant once just so you can see it. I started off coloring it with the lighter tone, and then I went in with a darker tone just to see if it blended better that way. Obviously, I didn't have any problems the other way, but I just wanted to try both methods just to see. So then I went back over with that lighter color and just kind of overlapped overlapped the darker, and I just left the lightest area alone so it could kind of feather in and fade. It blended great. And so for this one, I colored it in with a really pale yellow, and then I just kind of flicked in some light green shadow areas, and that blended. So I think I'm going to have to play with this Recollections paper a little bit more. The one thing I noticed on this, though, with the alcohol markers is that it will want to bleed out. So color within it blends so well that it wants to bleed right out of your stamped image. So make sure that you just stop just a hair before your stamp lines and you'll be fine. Or you can color right up to it if you're not going to do a lot of coloring. The other thing is it's going to show through the back, but I'll show you a handy trick for dealing with that so you can still do a one layer card if you want to. And the back actually becomes a focal point. So there you can see it all colored in. I really love the way that looks. And I'm doing a little prep work here to save me some time. I'm putting thin score tape. This is the 16th inch or 8th inch. It's probably the 8th inch. I'm bad with small fractions. I'm putting that all along the margins on some of the terrarium shape I die cut out of fun foam. So as you know, I don't have a lot of die cuts, especially of shapes, but I thought this, because it cuts out all those little windows and it embosses, I thought this would be used a lot, both with the succulent set that I have, and I could use it with really anything. So it's actually supposed to be a treasure box, but I thought it would look really good as like one of those terrariums that are done in like the gold stained glass foiling. So what I'm doing here is just dusting this with my embossing powder bag, because I trimmed everything so small that if there's any sticky left, I just want to stop the sticky, especially with the shaker elements. I don't want things sticking to any adhesive that may be exposed. It's clear, you're not going to see it, but I just want to make sure there's no stickiness. Now, originally I thought I could use some e-beads on this. They were a little too thick for that fun foam, so I ended up going for some tinier seed beads. So you definitely want seed beads if you're just going to use one layer of fun foam. If you're going to use a couple layers stacked up or some thicker double-sided mounting foam, you can go with the e-beads, but I found the seed beads to be all that this width could take. And here I have cut out that same shape with acetate. Now I used my die cut to kind of scribe the lines, and then I had to cut the perimeter out with my scissors. You don't want to cut everything out that the die cut would cut, because then you would have holes and it wouldn't hold your shaker parts in. So I put the adhesive on both sides of this. So having kind of running through the die cutter with that die helped me line everything up really well. Now I'm just making sure everything was lined up really well. And now I'm removing the liner paper on the score tape so I can put that other piece on top. Now keep in mind, you could just do a circle and do a terrarium inside of a circle and make use 2 circle dies to make your frame. That will be fine. You don't have to have this fancy die, but if you have something like it, like look in your stash, see what you have that would make an interesting terrarium and any frame really, and use that. This one's by Local King, and I will link that below so you can find that as well, but really you can use whatever you like. And then I'm just going around with the bone folder and just burnishing the edges in case I have any layers that are kind of sticking out, or if I have any sticky adhesive that's sticking out. So you just want to make sure that everything moves freely, and I think this looks fantastic, and it's going to stand up on a shelf or a mantle just perfectly. Now, so in the inside of that card, you could see that my ink bled through, but it's not going to be a problem. So just see what I'm going to do here. I'm grabbing a micron, and it's important to use a water-based pen for this because you don't want it to bleed through the front side of your design. So don't use a Sharpie. Don't even use a fine point Sharpie. Use a water-based pen. It could be your kid's Crayola. It doesn't matter, just not alcohol-based. And then just doodle around your shapes. And so this way you've got a scene on the inside that's kind of fun and whimsical and looks on purpose. And that way you don't have to use another layering piece if you don't want to. You could even cut that die out again and put that in if you want to have like a that terrarium look on the inside. Just be careful that you don't make it too bulky. Now here I'm just using some scrap paper and sticking it down with some washi tape that's also a cactus theme, so I'd have a place to write a sentiment. And I also wanted to use this set here from Rubber Stamp Tapestry that has sentiments for the backs and insides of your card. And what I like about this is that it encourages the recipient of this card to reuse it instead of throwing it away. So I mean, if somebody gets it and they love it and they want to keep it, wonderful. But if they don't and they feel a little guilty about throwing it away, this has a removable panel here that says, I was lovingly made. Before you throw me away, you have my permission to regift me or tear me apart and create something new. So that way it gives somebody the permission to pass it along, reuse it, might save them when they need a birthday card. I think anything you can do to give people like a, you know, kind of alleviate somebody's guilt, and also give your cards new life because you worked hard on it. It's pretty. It could brighten more than one person's day, and I think that is just wonderful. And when I suggested the idea for this stamp set to the owner of Rubber Stamp Tapestry, she loved the idea and she made it, and I'm so thankful because I find this to be just the perfect sentiment to put in almost any card that I make. So, there's just another little tip for you. I hope you enjoyed this. I had so much fun making this card. I love interactive elements, and you can find the stamps I used at pegstamps.com. They even have peg stamps of different succulents that you could put if you're doing a smaller terrarium. So thanks so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. Until next time, happy crafting.